Welcome everyone to this Thursday night sit at Mountain Cloud. Tonight's talk. Sitting together, sitting in the midst, fully immersed in this shared practice. In the encounter story between the third Chinese ancestor, Senkan or Sozan, and the second ancestor, Huika or Eka, Sozan says, "Seeing you here, I know what is meant by Sangha." We can say that. Seeing you here, even in this remote way, we know the treasure of Sangha. No near or far, just one sitting. Sozan goes on to ask about the other treasures, Buddha and Dharma. "I still don't know what they are," he says. Eka responds, "Mind is Buddha, mind is Dharma. Buddha and Dharma are not two different things. Along with Sangha, they comprise the three jewels." This from the master who sought out the wall-gazing Bodhidharma and begged for teaching to put his mind at rest. Buddha and Dharma are not two things. They are not even one. So tonight, I'd like to return to a familiar koan, the first encounter between Bodhidharma and Eka, Huika, Eka. It's case 41 of the Mumonkan or Gateless Gate. In a sense, this is picking up where we left off at the end of last month's 4-day retreat. That retreat began and ended with Bodhidharma, his teaching, the practice he brought from India to China and planted in a cave, 9 years of sitting, agelessly old. All of it for us. All of it for this moment. Now. Throughout that retreat and since, the first line of this case has continued to just resound. Bodhidharma sat facing the wall. Just that. Just sitting. Bare, intimate, immediate, and endlessly dynamic. Bodhidharma sat facing the wall. Here's the case. Case 41, Bodhidharma puts the mind to rest. Bodhidharma sat facing the wall. The second patriarch, standing in the snow, cut off his arm and said, "Your disciple's mind is not yet at peace. I beg you, Master, give it rest." Thank you. So I was talking about this essay by Karen Meisen-Miller called "How to Look at a Wall." And she ends her essay with Dogen's basic instructions on how to sit and begins it with an anecdote, a story about an intro class that Meisen-Miller taught and a student who kept raising questions. the student refusing simply to try out the instructions and instead diverting the focus from practice to theory and debate. Karen wondered what the student was seeking. Toward the end of the morning, the student said, "Can I ask one more thing? Have you found the secret to happiness?" "No," Karen said, "but I found the secret to suffering." Bodhidharma sat facing the wall. Quite a bit is recorded about Eka, this disciple. He was devout even as a child, skilled at poetry, at home in nature. As a young man, he studied Confucianism and Taoism. When Eka's parents died, he turned to Buddhism. He sought out a Zen master, was ordained, traveled around studying. And at 32, his detailed biography tells, he settled at the monastery with his master, studying the sutras and practicing. At around age 40, Eka has a vision that sets him off to find Bodhidharma. He was inspired, sincere, and desperate to awaken, to discover the secret to suffering. So the story of Eka and Bodhidharma is iconic. Eka travels south and arrives at the cave where Bodhidharma is sitting facing the wall. The record says it was December 9th, this auspicious day after Bodhi Day, after Buddha's Enlightenment Day. And heavy snow was falling. Bodhidharma wouldn't acknowledge him. Eka stands in the snow outside the cave all night, it's said, until it's up to his knees. And seeing him there the next morning, Bodhidharma asks, "What do you want? What are you asking for?" Eka's answer is telling, touching. As far as I know, it's the only time in the koans that someone asks in this way. "Your Reverence, please open the gate of mercy and save all beings. Have compassion on all beings and guide me. This awakening I seek is not for myself alone. It can't be." Yamada Konroshi once said that if our practice is not on behalf of all beings, we have no business doing it. The reality is there's no other way. Even if we don't see it, even if we're caught up in a sense of separation, as if my suffering and the suffering of the world are two, practice doesn't abide that division. 1 minute of practice is 1 minute of the whole world. This case is succinct. One sentence, one clause about the urgency of Eka's search and the degree to which he's willing to give up life and limb to resolve it. It's said that he pulls out a small knife, severs his forearm, and tosses it in to Bodhidharma. Here is my suffering. Here is my asking. Here is a sign, maybe a symptom of the unabating restlessness of my mind, even after all these years. That could have happened. The accounts vary. For Bodhidharma, it's a clear sign of Eka's determination. For us, it may signal what Miller calls the savagery of human suffering. Or it could be a gesture that mercifully includes the myriad ways we cut ourselves off from the wellspring at hand. It could signal the longing of our hearts for peace, for unconditional belonging, for the wholeness of this true human body. That wholeness. Your disciple's mind is not yet at peace. I beg you, Master, give it rest. Bring your mind to me, and I will put it to rest. What is this thing you call mind? Where is its substance? Find it, bring it, show it to me. The question can take many forms: anxiety, loss, lack, any of the hindrances. What is it? Where is its substance? What are its parameters? Does it have an edge, a border? Can you find it? Bring it to me, says Bodhidharma, and I will put it to rest. Another translation has Eka asking, your disciple's mind is not yet silent. Please, Master, silence this mind. Bring your mind here and I'll silence it for you, says Bodhidharma. All that noise, all the static, where is it? What is it? If only we could find it, bring it, and be done with it. Hakuin Zenji has an instruction. Find the silence which contains thoughts. One silence, all pervading. Find it. What if you are it? Eka has long been searching. Suddenly it all comes into view. All. Nothing at all. I have searched for the mind, but have never been able to find it. There, says Bodhidharma, I have finished putting it to rest for you. Already that, already at rest, already complete, silenced through and through. if we get a taste of this, we might realize the intimate dynamism of our own seeking, the utter sufficiency, the inexhaustible generosity. We are, as I've said before, and others too, we are soaking in the thing we seek, except it's not a thing. Some 3 centuries after Bodhidharma, Nansen called it as vast and wide as the great empty firmament. No substance, no hindrance, no other. It cannot be found apart from you, exactly as you are. Bodhidharma sat facing the wall. For so many people, these are challenging times. Globally, locally, individually. And still, again and again, I've heard, said, and witnessed this practice is larger than circumstances. The masters show us the way of the unconditional, open, constantly changing, the wonder and relief of not knowing, no condition, no position from which to measure, nothing excluded. Just to sit, to rest in this, express it, explore it, is an unspeakable gift. Even when it's difficult. We shouldn't take it for granted, not for a sit, not for a day. This was brought into particularly sharp relief for me recently by an exchange with a serious practitioner who has been navigating great loss. At one point, the grief was so overwhelming, sitting became impossible. I know this is my path, but I can't bring myself to sit. Grief upon grief. One day, something turned. An act of grace, of mercy, of love. The student gave up any thought of what this sitting is and just sat. Bare, no gaining idea, nothing to do. There, here, just this. By way of commentary on Mumon's verse to case 41, I like to venture to read a poem of Henry's. He shared it in a talk some months ago, and it's just continued to resound. When I contacted him, I don't know, a couple weeks ago and asked if he could put his hands on this poem, it was filed away somewhere in the ether, and thank you for looking and sending it and saying, you know, the words were, do whatever you want with this. I did not intend to do this, but here it is. And first, Mumon's verse to the case. Coming from the west and pointing directly to it. All the trouble comes from the transmission. The one who disturbs the monasteries is originally you. That you is addressed to us, each one of us. So with great gratitude, here's Henry's poem. Facing the wall. It's me and my shadow again, the little night I cast on the wall. Looking cubist this morning, square-shouldered, pin-headed. All the trouble, all the pain, yearning and hope, all from that one square yard of darkness on the wall. Bodhidharma sat this way, a leaf of a man blown in from the west, light as dust, a quaver in the haze, for whom night and day were a memory, life and death a dream. He crossed the Yangtze on a blade of grass, then sat in his famous cave for he didn't care how long, until time and space burned up and nothing was left but a blur on the wall, and that was enough. Nothing was left but a blur on the wall, and that was enough. Enough. This is not the enough of a solution or a measure. Enough vaccine for every country, sufficient food to feed the hungry, enough effort to address the needs of the world. It's the enough of this now. The sufficiency from which everything springs. Sitting facing the wall, nothing left. It's the poverty and the beauty of having not one thing. And out of that, nothing at all available to offer everything. About 2 weeks ago, I received word that Carmen Efabla, a Soto Zen teacher from the Philippines, dear friend of Tu Mountain Cloud, was in the hospital in Manila with COVID. She texted from her room. where she was also sitting zazen. A very good sign. With her permission, I'd like to read her message. It's short. Carmen wrote, I am aware that something may happen, but it really doesn't matter at all. In this morning's sit, everything was just love and more love. I'm here, no person in my room, and yet this room has no walls or floor or ceiling. It goes beyond boundaries. COVID truly is me. It's me and all human suffering and alive and gone. Totally everything and yet nothing. So no fear of dying or death. Total freedom and happiness. I really feel so great. It's more than Joriki. This energy can't be depleted. It's totally void. And then she wrote, thanks for being here, for being me. Cannot be depleted. Totally void. Bodhidharma sat facing the wall, and that was enough. Does this address the suffering of the world? The suffering of the world is not excluded. Does the inexhaustible sufficiency of this reality, this replete, complete now, call us to live in the world in a way that is turned toward the well-being of all? All. Bodhidharma said yes. Our hearts say yes. The Dharma, the peace Eka discovered and transmitted, says yes. It compels us to hear the cries of the world as our very own cries and to respond in kind. What a gift to have the chance. Thank you for navigating this platform, for listening, for this shared practice. Thank you.